Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's week 14 and the fantasy football preview is ready to rock. We've got a couple special guests on the docket today. William Carroll, Eric Gruner, and my regular co-host, Batteray. So let's see what we got. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And we're going to bring them in. So I'm going to bring them in one by one. Let's welcome in Mr. Batteray, I believe. There he is. Batteray is first up on the docket here. Batter, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing pretty well, although I made a big mistake last night, Batter. As you can see over my shoulder here, we put up a tree last night, and I cut the tree down, as I showed you guys, but never checked the lights before I put them on the tree, and half of them didn't work. Shade this morning, but we're making the best of it. I'm going to bring in the other two, our guests this week, Will Carroll and Eric Gruner. Here we go. Gentlemen. Rick, you got to fix your camera. You're sideways.
Oh, you said landscape.
Oh, I meant if there was a way to make it so your whole thing filled, but no, that's fine. I was just mentioning to Mr. Batteray that I put up the tree last night, but didn't check the lights. So as you can see, it's about a half lit tree there. Maybe you can half lit when you put the lights on the tree. I don't know. That could be the. But nonetheless, welcome, Will, Eric.
If you don't move your head, it looks like it's a fully lit tree.
That's true. And Will, I love the shirt. You always bring it when you show up on the preview.
Yeah, this was actually supposed to make its debut at WrestleMania this year, but it was canceled, unfortunately, down in Tampa. I was going down to visit the fellas. A bunch of us were going to go, and unfortunately weren't able to because of everything going on. So hopefully next year.
Absolutely. And Batter, I'll hand the floor over to you as my regular co-host as we get this thing started. Where would you like to begin today's preview?
I mean, last week of the season, I think who's still alive to make the playoffs? Is it just 5 teams or is it possibly 6? I'm not 100% sure.
I believe it's just the 5.
5 teams, Batter. 5 teams.
5 teams. So Smuts Nuts has they don't have a chance to get in at 7 and 6?
I think it's with their point total. I think you're looking at a situation where they'd have to really outscore everyone else to get in.
Yeah, they need to outscore everyone by 90 some odd points, it looks like.
Yeah, he'd need about 50 from Brishad Perryman. So I don't see it happening. I don't see that happening.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's an exciting week. I mean, we have 5 teams still going for those last 4 spots, and none of them are playing each other, really, because Fried Dough to Go is in. Will's team, I mean, it'd be hard for them not to make it in at this point, in my opinion.
I thought about resting my starters, but
it's funny. I made the joke to Mark last week. If I had one, I was going to rest my starters just to make sure he doesn't get in. But I wouldn't do that.
Is there a scenario that Will does not? I think there is no scenario that Will does not get in. Is there?
I just have to have 0 points, basically.
Yeah, I think you're playing Batter, so there's if Batter loses today to you, and we're going to get into that matchup in depth, but if Batter loses to you, there's a pretty decent chance that he's on the outside looking in, and likely the first or second highest scoring team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if any of the Bermuda Bumblebees lose, if Big John's Little Pals lose, or Toga Temptations lose, I'll be in. So I'm in with a loss from any of them, and with a win, I'm in. So I think my chances of getting in are above 50%, but I don't like my matchup today. I'll say that.
I will correct you, and I know Rick has studied this in depth. I do think that if I lose and you lose, assuming I still take you in points, I think.
That's right.
You're on the outside looking in.
That's right. No, because you overtook me last week on points. But your team looks like the strongest team going into this week. So
Much like every other week.
I'm sure it didn't work out last week for any of us. So.
And I would dispute that his team is the strongest going in to this week. I would say.
Hey,
Team IR has the strongest
calling
lineup.
you the favorite for KOP last week. Did you catch that?
I'm sorry.
Did you
I didn't catch it. I apologize, but I assumed you had my back out there. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely had you pegged for KOP last week, and it worked out pretty good. Like I said, the best, 3-10 team of all time.
Yeah, and actually, probably the best matchup this week is Pat and my matchup. I think we're two of the better teams actually. So I think it should be a fun matchup. I'm looking forward to it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, not many people are watching, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, why don't we go through each matchup and just go down the line, get everyone's opinion.
Okay. So I on my scoreboard, obviously, I see my matchup first. But why don't we start with the do you want to do the non-playoff games as well, or you just want to do the games with playoff?
Yeah, last preview of the season. Let's do them all. Everyone's
okay.
up for
Let's start then. Well, let's start with the matchup that has the two teams that will not be in the playoffs for sure, and that is Team Irrelevance versus the Process. Pat had a pretty good opening day, 14 points for Cup, 11 for the Patriots defense. And Rick stands as a 20-point favorite, which could bring his overall record to 4-10 to close out the year. We'll go to Will. We'll go to Will first on this. Will, what's your takeaway of this Process versus Team Irrelevance matchup this week?
I mean, it's anything but irrelevant, of course. Hold on, I'm waiting for the matchup to actually load up on my computer here.
Oh, you haven't looked at it? Oh, dude.
Hey, Rick, any chance you change your name back to Relevance next year?
Never has been Relevance, never will be. This team name is in honor of, I think one of our former great league members,
Jeffrey Durant.
Yeah, and it'll stay with this team as long as I'm allowed in the league.
Is that a concern for you, Eric, as we head into 2021, that your standing in the league is on thin ice?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard one way or the other. That's for sure. So
the commissioner has been very silent this year. Not much from the commissioner. A text message once a week. That's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, can't even show up on one of these calls.
I know it's tough. Do you think there must be a lot of back office stuff he's working on? I think.
Yeah. That's what has me. That's the only thing that has me worried about my standing. So, who knows what he's got cooking up there? But,
heavy lies the crown, though. I mean, he's a busy man. So looking at this, obviously, Pat's got some points on the board already. Rick's relying on the Saints in this matchup, but it's a good matchup. Philly's trash lately, especially Carson Wentz. I mean, sorry to Pat, but Wentz is he's got to go. He's trash. He's garbage. But Taysom Hill, I actually said to Marky earlier this year going into these fantasy leagues, because we're in another league with each other, like I thought this is the year that Breeze is going to be done. And started out really slow, then played well, but now hasn't played for weeks and weeks. What do you guys think about the Saints moving forward? This is kind of off fantasy, but I'm kind of curious to see what people think if Hill's the guy that they're going to go with in the future, or.
Good question. Great point. I think Breeze is done for two reasons. I think he stepped in the offseason, so he's definitely in the social justice warrior crosshairs. So they're looking for a way to get him out, push him out. And it's a perfect opportunity with the guy you see, Taysom Hill. He's able to handle it. He's thrown the ball better than any of us could have ever expected. And then he's just an absolute weapon in the red zone with those trick plays we see so much these days, misdirection, kind of a wildcat, wildcat on every down. So it's he's been great, and I think moving forward he's your starter next year from day one. And we'll see what Breeze does. Breeze might try to force his way out. go to another spot, or retire, Eli Manning style. But we'll
Well,
see.
you can't forget that they have Jameis Winston on the bench too. I mean, there's a battle right there.
I mean, it really showed actually the biggest loser of this season might be Jameis Winston, without having taken a snap, because it was obvious that he was never in consideration to be brought in, which pretty sad to see his career arc. But hey, maybe he'll get another shot someplace else, but not here. No way.
So do you think Breeze does return as the starting quarterback this season and into the playoffs, or how do you see it as far as 2020 is concerned?
Boy, it'd be really tough. It'd be really tough to not bring Breeze back this year, but I think they're going to find a way in the offseason to get him out of town.
Yeah.
But I do think he returns.
Batter, your thoughts on that? Any thoughts?
I kind of disagree a little bit. I think this Taysom Hill, while he's played well in these few games, defenses and defensive coordinators in the NFL are just too good. I don't see him putting up these kind of numbers, being able to do these kind of trick plays for an entire season. Look at Kaepernick. He looked like the best player in the NFL for a year, and then the next year looked like an average guy. Look at Lamar last year, and look at him this year. Defenses figure these players out, and both those guys, in my opinion, are much more explosive athletes than Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's stronger, but I can't see him leading a team, a Super Bowl team, let's just say, all season. He reminds me more of a Tim Tebow than anything. Better arm, but I can't see him leading the Saints to any type of glory.
Yeah, I mean, that's some good points there, Batter. But that's the key is what Taysom Hill's accuracy is, and what he's shown to me on the games that I've watched. He's more accurate than I think any of us thought he'd be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think he could be a solid, stand in the pocket quarterback, and then you've got the weapon that when you look at these winning teams, and majority of them have this, kind of outlet where the quarterback's able to make when the play breaks down, the quarterback's able to make a play on his feet. And
yeah,
I see Taysom Hill and I disagree. I think Taysom Hill might be the best all-around athlete in football. I think Lamar's quicker, but Taysom Hill's pretty quick, and Taysom Hill can run people over. So
he's also 30 years old though. So, and my concern isn't necessarily his accuracy. It's more, I haven't seen him get to his third or fourth option yet. It's first option, maybe second option, take off. I don't see that working in the NFL.
Yeah, no, that's the position. You're right. Reading the defense, and let's see if he can do it. But I think they're going to give him a chance, because I think Breeze is done.
Yeah, I agree with Breeze being done. I said that at the beginning of the year, though, when I was trying to get your player, part of my negotiation status.
Yeah, and once you take on the social justice warriors, you're done.
Yeah. Well, he did donate $5 million, so.
I will say this. One thing we know for sure is Will Carroll knows how to ask a question. Man.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it is one of the most interesting things happening in the NFL. Taysom Hill in there.
For sure. No, that's great.
And to be honest, I wasn't going to play Carr this week. I didn't like Carr's matchup. Been streaming quarterbacks all year. It's probably what's cost me. Other than the draft snafu, which I've actually turned into, solid gold in the form of $26 in next year's draft by trading those players. But it's I wasn't going to play Carr, and I did put my initial bid was in on one of the Hall of Famers on He's Back if we want to transition. Tom Brady. So, and I did not win that bid. So Taysom Hill's my second choice here. Going in to play quarterback. He's probably my biggest question mark in this matchup. And I look for Brady to have a great week.
Absolutely. Batter, you have any thoughts on this irrelevance versus the process matchup?
Well, with all the smack I was talking about Taysom Hill, I do like him today. I think he is a good fantasy option. Just like Tim Tebow was, But I like Eric's roster. I mean, I think, Eric got the worst injury. He was hit by injuries the worst, let's say, in this league. I mean, he lost Saquon Barkley from the beginning of the year, and Eckler and Michael Thomas both missed more than half of the year. And those are probably his 3 best players going into the season. So no, I like his roster. I knew it was going to be a strong roster at the end of the season. I'm happy I didn't have to play him towards the end of the season. So it's a fully healthy roster right now. I think I definitely think this goes to Rick.
Yeah, and Rick again is targeted to be one of the leading point getters. Could be another KOP. Could get the final 2 KOPs of the season, which again is a great testament to his work ethic throughout the season to get this team up and running despite the injuries. And as he said, put himself in a great position next year in regards to his keeper situation.
Yeah, 2 more points and then we'll move on, Mark, if you don't mind. This last week was the first week that I had all 3 of my keepers in the lineup: Eckler, Thomas, and Waller. So yeah, the injury bug's been tough. And some people in the league office, the most important people, or the only person that really matters to the league in the league office, have said King of Points is more important than the playoffs. So winning King of Points, that's almost like winning championship. So I'll take it.
Oh man, well if that's the case, I hope I can hold on today. We'll see what happens. Let's move on. This is one of the shockers. We talked about playoff positioning. Big John's little pals. He's been fading down the stretch, and he faces the man. He's back, Sean O'Neill, who came in the other 3-10 team. And as it stands right now, we have a nip and tuck battle between these two. Big John only projected for 146.6 points today, where Sean, he did pick up Tom Brady, as Rick mentioned. I'm going to say it, a Big John, another man that doesn't speak often on the message board, but he did pipe up just earlier this week and told Rick to bring it. So Rick, we'll start with you here. What's your thoughts as Big John tries to make, I believe, his first playoff appearance today against He's Back?
Well, when I was watching diligently on Thursday night, Cam Akers just play like the stud that everyone thought he was at the beginning of the year. Well, at least some of us did. My initial thought was, okay, this is trouble for Big John's little pal. But Damon Harris, the guy who I thought was the best player on He's Back going in, didn't have a great day. So kind of keeps BJLP alive a little bit, which is wild to say that a guy that's been at the top of the league for so long is alive in a matchup against Sean, who's been, in my opinion, the worst team in the league. And I think he would agree with that. But it's just it just goes to show you how great fantasy football is that we're even talking about this matchup. That's it. That's close. And I think the key for BJLP has been all year, Russell Wilson to Tyler Lockett. They have to go off. They've got to get a score for both of them, and then Russell Wilson has to do his thing, get back to those MVP numbers, and play well for them. Injury question mark with Kenyon Drake, and also a real question mark if you play anybody against the Giants defense at this point in the year. So I look for that to be the trouble spot for Big John's little pals. Kenyon Drake not going to perform well this week, whether he's on the bench or in the lineup.
Will, your thoughts?
Definitely agree with a lot of that stuff. The other thing too, for Big John's little pal, Tyler Boyd. Obviously, if anyone watched that Cowboys game against the Ravens last week, any team can run the ball against that defense. So can't imagine Cincinnati's going to rely on the pass as much there. The Seattle game is obviously huge for his team with their defense playing as well. But that's one of the, I think you made mention of it, Marky. It was a pickup this week for the waiver wire. I had a bid on it as well because the Jets are a feast for a defense most weeks. So that could be like the make or break for this matchup right there, is that pickup that he had this week. Spend good money to get that pickup. Sean, obviously a tough season for him. T.Y. Hilton, I had him in another league, in our league, Marky, and huge bust. The last couple of weeks he's played well, though. Scored touchdowns the last couple of weeks, but the first 10, 11 weeks of the season just didn't seem to connect with Rivers. I think there was some injury stuff that he battled as well, but a pretty big drop-off for him this year. But this does look like this is the tightest matchup going into today, points-wise, I think, in terms of playoff implications and being interesting. So I honestly have to give the edge to Sean, just given that Cam Akers had such a huge day coming into this, but it looks like it's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, I agree, and I will, and Batter, I'll get your thoughts quickly, and then I'll give my thoughts and move on. But what are your thoughts here, Batter? Who do you like in this matchup today?
I mean, just looking at it, you would say Big John has the better roster, right? But then when you dig a little deeper with everything that Rick said and Will said, I mean, then you go into the Seahawks. I would say they need a big game. Well, if you've been watching them play the last 4 weeks, they're really trying to implement the run. Really, really trying to work on, getting their run game going. And if you look at Russell Wilson's last 4 games, it's a direct reflection on that. He went from averaging, I think, 40 points a game to the last 4 games scoring 11.4, 26, 17, and 18. And if you're playing the Jets, I don't think you're going to need to be passing the ball a lot in the second half. So I think that's why I'm going to go with Sean in this matchup, just because I think that Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson, if they don't really do a lot of damage in the first half, I don't see those two having big numbers today.
Yeah, and I kind of, I think, I lean a bit towards Sean. I mean, he has gone all in on Tampa Bay, but if you look at the betting lines and the over-unders for this week, that is projected to be the highest scoring game of the week. So it's a kind of an all-in approach for the most part there. I just jumped over to another screen. So yeah, so I think he looks good. I like Dobbins this week. But it'll really come down to can Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, and the boys put up the points to get him over the top. And for some reason, I just feel like they will.
Mark,
yeah.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
As the only league member who's been fined in recent memory, the only member ever.
No, I do believe there was another fine this year. I think Nuts was fined $10 as well because they had an extra IR spot, I believe.
Oh, maybe that could be true. I'm not sure.
Well, and as Sean, who's been the most vocal member, really vocally calling out Big John for lack of participation and making mistakes in the past as he was learning, a new member, and Sean was the first one to call him out and not be a very neighborly league owner to Big John Little Pal. But do you think that which adds a little bit to this matchup, if Big John's able to beat him and get in the playoffs, shut him up really, would be big for Big John. But the real question here is Sean has kind of made a joke of the whole season by keeping Gronkowski, by playing someone like Antonio Brown, who he's got a much better option on his bench, but I don't know if he thinks it's cute or funny or whatever. But is Sean on the chopping blocks in the league offices, or should he be fined for not taking the league seriously? I mean, other 3-10 teams have, obviously, and done our best, tried to put a winning lineup out there every week, falling short, but at least giving it the best effort, where I don't know if Sean really is. So what are your thoughts there? Fine coming for Sean or expulsion?
Batter, you've been in contact with the league office. Do you think that's coming or no?
No, I don't think I think Sean is a true believer in Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski, always has been, his team names, he's back. So I don't think he was making a mockery, and we all knew what Sean's team was going to look like this year, last year. He traded a large portion of his draft dollars to acquire players mid-season. He really went all out for that championship. And the fact that he's won 3 games this year tells me that I think he has tried. Although it's not a good week to be backing up Sean, considering Ryan Fitzpatrick was in his lineup last week, but I do think that was an honest mistake. So we'll see.
This could be the
Yeah.
long play for Sean trying to get Trevor Lawrence next year. This could just be tanking for Trevor.
And Rick, just for the record, just so we can come back and mark the tape, who was the better option you saw on his bench? Was it Mike Williams that you would be playing in place of Antonio Brown?
And no, I would play
Marcus
Hollywood
Brown?
Brown
Hollywood,
over
yeah.
Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
But I might even play
Brown
Henry
do for you?
Ruggs.
You've got it on.
I might play Ruggs. Actually, everyone on his bench I'd play over Antonio Brown, except for the guys that are out. But I think Hollywood Brown is a good option this week.
Do you think that's a personal issue with Antonio Brown, or do you really think they're all better?
No, I think Antonio Brown's option 5 or 6 on Tampa Bay. I mean, he's not probably he's playing 30% of the snaps in Tampa. With Evans and Godwin and Jones coming out of the backfield has been such a dynamite player, and I think Gronkowski is a play every week. I do. I don't think he's a keep. That was my issue with that from day one, that he kept him because he could have bought him week 5 off the waiver wire. But no, I think Antonio Brown's just not a top option in Tampa's offense. It's not there. This is not Pittsburgh 2017. Yeah.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the next matchup that we have, and we'll go to the birthday boy himself, Smuts Nuts. Happy birthday, Lance. Hope you had a good day yesterday. He takes on the Bermuda Bumblebees, which this one again, very close, 52% win probability for the Bees on the road against the Nuts. And this is a must-win for Red, pretty much. I think if Red loses, and I think he's probably out. So I will start with you, Batter, on this one. What's your takeaway as we look at the Bees versus the Nuts this week?
This is a pretty even matchup. Obviously, if we go down the line, you got to give quarterback to Red. Patrick Mahomes is just unbelievable. It doesn't matter what defense he's playing against, it seems. But from there, Ezekiel Elliott's been a huge disappointment, probably the biggest disappointment of the season, because he wasn't injured, and I think after the first couple of weeks of the season, he just really hasn't performed at all. I don't know what to think of Hilaire because he didn't play a snap last week. Does anyone know why? Was he sick? Or
I don't know the answer to that. Will?
I'm looking right now just with the player update. I did see that it was a questionable thing, possibly him not playing last week, but then that never came out. They were saying, no, he's not going to play. But yeah, he's been, obviously that hurt Red. Red spent big dollars on him this year coming into the season. And then he started out hot that first game. I was like, oh my God, Red got a steal here.
Mhm.
And then there hasn't really much consistency there. To speak to Batter's point about Ezekiel Elliott, the fumbles have been the biggest issue. I know that there's been offensive line problems in Dallas, but he's just, you gotta take care of the onion or it'll make you cry. You gotta hold on to the ball. So.
Oh, and I will say this. I was just looking at the times for these games. So Red's going to have a pretty good idea by 4:00 whether he's pouring a little extra eggnog, because the majority of his players are at that 1:00 time slot. He does have Kamara and Hurst at 4:25, but he's going to be in a pretty good have a pretty good idea of where he stands. Where if you look at the other side, Smuts Nuts has a lot of late play. So much like election night, you could see this thing shift as the day goes on. Towards Smuts Nuts, but Red should and needs to have a big lead today at 4:00 when those teams conclude.
What are your guys' thoughts on the Carolina offense this week? I think they have 9 players out on COVID. Their second, third option as receivers, a couple of linemen. How do you think that looks as an offense today?
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, McCaffrey's out. But he did the right thing, Smuts Nuts, picking up Mike Davis. But anytime you're in a situation like that, and a lot of times it seems, well, they're at home today, I guess. You got to imagine it's going to take the toll on that offense. But
yeah,
we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. Rick?
Yeah. Going back to the matchup itself, though, I think I would give these a slight edge to Red, even with the 2 running back situations going on there. Because Smuts Nuts, I mean, he might be the KOP this week or he might score 120. It seems like all of his players are really either hit it big or just lay an egg. Calvin Ridley, he can get you 40 points or he can get you 5. Mike Davis might be his most consistent player. Jones, same with him. Perriman, same with him. Either a home run or nothing. So it's hard to predict this one. It looks like Red has the more consistent roster, so I am going to go with Red on this matchup.
Will?
I agree. This is probably the hardest matchup to make a prediction on because there is so much kind of feast or famine with these players. Bernard could have a good game against that Dallas run defense. The Giants defense has obviously been playing well lately. We started talking about it in the last matchup, and Carson's playing in this matchup. Seattle plays to whoever they're playing. They play to that level. So they're playing the Jets today. Seattle doesn't win blowout games. Every game comes down to late fourth quarter, overtime. They could be down 2 touchdowns in the last 5 minutes, and Wilson's going to make a push to keep him in the game. They always play to the level of their opponent. It seems like they never really take care of business the way that a team that's coached that well and has that much talent should in some cases. But Batter hit it on the nail on the head. I mean, this is a very tough matchup to call. There is so much potential or so much for success or for just basement dwelling points.
Yeah, and for sure. Well, Red last week, what did he end up with? He had a really tough. Did he end up with 120 points last week or thereabouts? It was low. I know that. And Carson's played well. I mean, he missed a bunch of time. He's come back. He's had 2 strong games. He put up 22 points against the Giants defense, which dominated that game last week. I think the Edwards-Helaire thing is of concern for Red for sure. Mark Andrews is back. I don't know. The Giants in Arizona, Sterling Shepard. I really do think. I think Smuts Nuts is going to pull this one out. Obviously, Tannehill is not in the same class as Mahomes, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that Reds team as well. I'd have to look at his overall points week in, week out. I feel like they've plummeted in recent weeks. The lack of consistency. I did talk to Smuts Nuts this morning, and he was at work, meaning on the league, getting his roster set. So I think you might have a disappointed commissioner here later today. I'm going to go with Smuts Nuts with the upset in week 14.
Yeah, Rick here. I do think this is a real toss-up matchup. I think it could go either way. I think the biggest surprise in the NFL for me is not, the Cowboys defense stinks. We knew that. The quarterback goes down, but that sucks for them. Andy Dalton's a great backup as far as backups go. But Ezekiel Elliott has laid an egg in 2020. He looks like his effort is not there. It's typical, give the guy $100 million and his career arc starts going down. So I'd be concerned about Zeke here. He's an RB1, but he's not the RB1 that Red paid for when he started the season. The big thing for Red's only chance is Pat Mahomes coming out and throwing up 50. And there's a 50-50 chance that happens. So that's where I give Red the chance to win. Maybe 1 or 2 of those scores goes to Edwards if he plays. But other than that, Zeke a big disappointment. Kamara's been a disappointment. Just not, there's so many things going on in New Orleans, whether it's, trouble with Breeze off the field, Breeze playing weekly, Thomas out, so they're focused on the run, split carries. Just Kamara's not a 25 touch guy getting 100 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns. It doesn't seem like that's been his, going to happen this year. And in Seattle, to my point earlier when I was talking about Wilson and Lockett, I don't think Seattle plays down to their opponents. I think Seattle's defense stinks. So regardless of who they're playing against, like Colt McCoy was able to score points on them, which is, crazy. So, they're going to the Jets are gonna put up a few points. They're gonna score touchdowns. So the offense is gonna be alive in Seattle. You're gonna see Wilson running and throwing. You're gonna see Carson running and catching. So I like Carson having a nice game here. He's a good player. I like Davis as a back. He's going to get 20, 25 touches. That's the most important stat in football, fantasy football. Touches. Davis is going to get them. Toss up. I don't know. I can't pick it.
It's a tough one.
The first time Mr. Spice has not taken a stand on something. I cannot believe it, but it happened. Happened here first, folks. Yeah, I was just looking too. It's since week 5. I don't mean to pound on Zeke and the boys, but week 5, he's only had one 20-point fantasy output since week 5 of the season, which
Zeke,
came.
yeah.
And I was trying to pull up a layer. Unfortunately, my computer or my iPad here is not okay. And let's see. So he had a 23-point output against Las Vegas, and his last time he put up 20 points was in week 6 against Buffalo. And really, 1, 2, 3, only 4 times this season has Edwards-Helaire done that. So,
Mark, did you say you're having Wi-Fi problems? Quick, stop the feed. Stop the draft. Wi-Fi issues.
You know, getting back to Rick's point about Kamara, and I didn't even realize it. Since Breeze has gone down, he's had 3 receptions.
Is that right? Wow.
He had 0, 1 the next week for -2 yards, and last week 2 for 9 yards.
Yeah,
If
it's hard to
Jameis
put
was
your
playing,
finger.
that wouldn't be the case.
A lot of dump offs with Jameis. I agree. If it's just hard to put your finger on what the issue is, and if there even really is an issue, it's just there's so much, stuff going on in New Orleans, and I think they're still a good team, and he's still a great player. It's just the stuff has him not getting the touches. So,
How many pits of misery has Red had this year? Just 2?
I think 2. Last week he scored 89 points.
Yeah, I just looked at he scored 117 in week 6. He only scored 160 points in like one of the last 4 games. So we'll see. I mean, certainly this is not a surefire win for Smuts Nuts, but I just, for whatever reason, just feel like I like his lineup a little bit better today. Maybe it's partly because it helps me get into the playoffs, so I have a bit of a rooting interest there.
Red's biggest mistake on the season has had a great draft. I think he had great keepers, had it all set up. His biggest mistake was not pursuing at the trade deadline a star tight end. They were available for him. But he just I don't know if he falls in love with his players, or he doesn't feel like trading is a way to build a team. Maybe, I don't know, but doesn't want to help other teams, even though it helps him. I can't put my finger on it, but he's not a trader. Had the opportunity to grab a tight end. I think if he had the one that was available to him, I think he would have a couple more wins on the season. That's been the bugaboo spot for him. He's been rotating through weak tight ends, streaming, I guess, but not really, kind of just playing the guy he has until he decides to play a different guy. But that's his biggest bugaboo for the season, but he's got a chance to still sneak in.
Yeah.
I
don't think any of us knew that the
trade deadline was what it was, right? I didn't know. It came and went before I realized it was gone.
Well, every year ESPN tells you on your team page, gives you a countdown. Trade deadline coming, and it's a week out. It just lets you know, and you see it every time you log in. We did not have that. I was in talks with Eric about a trade that we were going to do the next week. We were pretty close on a number. I
think I ended up making that deal with Eric, didn't I?
Well, I don't know what you were talking about, but I know what I was talking about.
What I thought we discussed this on the preview. Wasn't it Daryl Henderson? Weren't we both?
That's who you wanted. I didn't want to pay what you paid for Daryl Henderson. That turned out to be a good move on my part. But just giving you a hard time. But I had my eye on 2 of his players, and I think we had settled on one of them. We were just coming up with an actual price. We would have had more auction dollars going into next season. So maybe I think my roster would have been stronger, but everything.
No,
works.
and the more I've thought about the trade line deadline thing, it is on us for not, being. It should be, the most important thing, especially the teams that are maybe out of the playoffs or.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even in the playoffs, we should be like, oh, this is my last opportunity to get a star player. If I have a chance to win this thing, and we all should have been on top of it. So that was bad on us. But I'm more referring to an overall, Red just doesn't seem to want a deal. It's just Big John Little Pal doesn't seem to want a deal. Sean, Batter, Mark Wells, Will.
I didn't really deal this year at all, but it was also still feeling my way out, and I had a couple conversations with people here and there, but it still kind of getting my feet wet and getting comfortable with it too. And I think it'll take going through another year's with the drafts just to see how the dollars play out with trades during the season and stuff. Like, okay, yeah, this is advantageous to do this. I was also in a good spot where I was pretty comfortable with my roster. I didn't feel like I had to make a ton of moves at all. I had a lot of depth at wideout, and it ended up helping out because Fuller ended up getting suspended for these last games, but I still have some depth there. But I've found the other league that we're in, Marky, and that's the one that I have most experience in. There's not a ton of trades there at all either.
Yeah.
I think there's a happy medium where sometimes it can be too much and too busy with it in some leagues that I've done before in the past. But that was my biggest thing, is really kind of getting my feet wet this season. And fortunately, I've been pretty lucky. Luck is a huge part of this year for anyone that plays fantasy football, to not have the injury bug or not have any COVID issues on their team at all. And I've been pretty lucky there.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to one of the premier matchups of the week. We're going to obviously finish with Will and Batter's matchup. So this will be the Toga Temptations taking on Philly. I will let you guys handle most of the analysis in this one. But just a note, when you look at my team, 5-1 at home, 3-4 on the road, heading down to Philly today, trying to get into the playoffs. It's going to be tough. Joe, if you look at the points totals, so if we were to crown the king of points, Joe comes in fourth. So I'm currently leading, followed by Batter, Will.
Yeah.
Joe, who's in seventh place, has been your fourth highest scoring team. He also has had a bunch of injuries that have affected his season, and I think he would be in a better position had that not happened. But let's start with who did I start with last time? We'll start with Will. I got the camera on Will, so let's start with Will. What's your thoughts on this matchup, which could be a make or break for me getting into the playoffs this week?
Well, so going down the line, I like kind of going that there's some really great matchups. Lamar Jackson against Josh Allen had a pretty phenomenal year. A bit of a drop off for Jackson last week. He had a monster week, though. I thought you were actually going to kind of come back and sneak back into that, and I was lucky to get
I did too.
The late touchdown for in our other league I'm talking about. We had a matchup there too. But Sanders versus Chubb is a good matchup. Dalvin Cook is probably the most explosive player in the league in terms of this year, especially being able to put up just monster days. Adams been playing really well lately. They wins that matchup. Same with Tyreek Hill, I think, wins that matchup as well, with Diggs going against the Pittsburgh defense. I definitely think that this leans in your favor, but it is a good matchup because Allen against Pittsburgh, he could show up in a big way. Pittsburgh is not as good as their record indicates. They've only lost the one game against Washington last week, but if you look at who they've played, they beat up on a lot of bad teams, and even some of the bad teams that they beat, it's not like they're blowing teams out. They beat Tennessee, but it was a tight game. Beat Cleveland earlier this year, tight game. They don't blow teams out at all. I think the Chiefs are obviously the king of the mountain in the AFC. I don't think anyone can argue that at all. As much as Pittsburgh's record is as good as it is, but I like this going in your favor, Marky.
Now the Cowboys defense, could that be my downfall?
I don't know if it'll be the downfall for you because you're going against Cincy, playing with a backup quarterback. I mean, Cincy's not an explosive offensive team at all. Were you looking at anyone this week? Were you trying to pick anyone up?
Well, last week it affected me. I did pick up the Raiders last week against the Jets, and they didn't put up a great day. I wanted Seattle. I was going to go back to the well and try that. Didn't get them. I think I should have bid more. I've got, I think, $75 left. I bid $10. So there's no point leaving that money on the table. So I'll have to go back in and look, but the Cowboys were that third option, I guess, what I was looking for defense this week.
Yeah, I actually happen to look. Mixon is not playing today at all either. I don't know if you saw that for Cincy.
Okay.
So Bernard, I think it was Red that had Bernard going. That could be a big day for him potentially, but there's not a lot of firepower on that Cincinnati offense at all, fortunately for Dallas. And it's also a big game for Andy Dalton. Kind of curious to see how he plays against his former team. Dallas's offense last week, they ended up losing by 14 or 17 points. But if you really watch the game, they had a potential to score a ton more points than they did. 3 missed field goals, offense stalled, once they would get to the red zone. But the game was actually relatively close for as much as the Ravens ran all over them. Dallas was in the game technically for most of the game and just couldn't put the ball in the end zone. So it's kind of random to think that Cincinnati-Dallas matchup could have big effects on what our playoffs are going to be. But
yeah, absolutely. So just for the record, you're thinking there's going to be a party in Temptation Town tonight or tomorrow night?
It's always a party in Temptation Town.
Okay, so we'll move on to Batter. Batter, what are your thoughts when you look at this matchup between the Temptations and Philly?
I like to go down the line. I think this year Josh Allen is a better player than Lamar Jackson. I just like Lamar Jackson's matchup this week better. I know Pitt as a team hasn't looked that great, but I think their defense is the stronger side of the ball there. And they stopped the run so well, so I don't think you're going to see Josh Allen running all over the place. I could be wrong. He's proved a lot of people wrong this year, so we'll see there. But I like Lamar Jackson there. I definitely like Nick Chubb over Sanders. He's been very disappointing this year too, to be honest with you. Sanders, I thought he'd be a top 5, top 10 player for sure. But that whole offense just looks like a mess right now. Dalvin Cook and Devontae Adams, I think, are the 2 hottest players for their positions in the league right now. And just because of those 2, I think I have to go with Toga on this matchup. I mean, Tyreek Hill's phenomenal.
And Hill.
Yeah. But Hill's also a very hit and miss. I mean, Hill will get you 6 points and 7 points, where Devontae Adams, I would be shocked if he doesn't get you 20.
Just so you know, Batter, there's only one game this year that Tyreek Hill has scored less than 10 points.
Yeah, but I follow him a lot. I really like him as on the field. Let's just say that his game is really fun to watch. But he is hit and miss. I mean, this is his most consistent year. He has surprised me there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And he's getting more looks too. I mean, a lot of those early games, 5 catches, 3 catches, 4 catches. Week 11, he caught 11 balls, 13 in week 12, 6 last week.
Oh, you're so right. Look at his targets the last 4 weeks. His targets are 18, 14, 15, and 11. That's incredible. I've never seen that. Mahomes usually does not target anyone other than Kelsey that much,
Right.
So
Batter, what have you been watching the last 4 weeks?
Not Kansas
football.
City.
And we all know, again, just talking about specific, like the most targeted player in the league has probably been Devontae Adams this year.
Mm-hmm.
You look at weeks. So since I'm just going quickly, week 7, 16 and 11, 12, 12, 8, 9, 12. And obviously he had 2 touchdowns. I'm going to knock on wood here. Devontae Adams has scored a touchdown in every week since week 7. And in many of those weeks, it's been multiple touchdowns. So.
Yeah, only 2 out of the 10 games he's played did he not score a touchdown.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see.
No, in my opinion, he's the best wide receiver in the game right now. Best situation, let's just say that. I don't know if he's the most talented guy out there. Definitely a great talent. But when you have Aaron Rodgers throwing it to you and targeting you that much, you're going to have a good game almost every week.
Yep.
Spice, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's so many neat integral matchups in regular football that affect this matchup. I think Lamar at Cleveland, that's a kind of Cleveland's had a really hot defense of late. Lamar's kind of shit the bed this season, and but they're still kind of in it, and so he's got a chance to redeem himself. So I love that kind of cool matchup. I think Josh Allen is other than the Mahomes, I won't say what I was going to say. I think Josh Allen is a great football player. I think he's really turned into a star, and I don't think any defense can slow him down. So, but I do like that Pittsburgh, being the everyone's favorite team, the trendy pick. I like Josh Allen going in there, beating the hell out of those guys. And then Chubb has played great since he's come back, so I like him. So I see big things out of him. I see big things out of Godwin. I see big things out of Diggs if Josh Allen's playing well. So I mean, a lot of great players in this matchup. A lot of cool. I agree with Batter, Cook, Adams. I throw Tariq Hill in there. Those are the three best fantasy. Well, the two best wide receiver options. Cook's the best running back option in the league. So how does Mark lose with those three guys? I might tell you in a few seconds, but I think one of the biggest kind of plays on this matchup that they're not, as a player that's not even in this matchup. I think what Aaron Rodgers does is going to determine what happens this week. And we have to watch a lot of Green Bay games because they're everyone's favorite team, and they always flex into Sunday night and Monday night and all this stuff, game of the week. So we see a lot of Green Bay. We all do. Aaron Jones is as good a running back as there is in football. For some reason, I think maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't like him. So if he runs off a few, if he gets hot, then the next thing you know, Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball 25 straight times. So we'll see if Rodgers focuses on the run, or focuses on the pass today. At Detroit, a terrible team. They should be up big. I kind of think Jones might get a few more touches than Adams this week. So, but we'll see. Maybe Aaron Rodgers in a bad mood. He's going to start throwing the ball.
Yeah, no, it's a great matchup for Aaron Jones against Detroit with the worst run defense in the league. So
yeah,
that will be interesting.
So, and really, for the season, Mark, I think we started out talking about how you missed in the draft, not getting that third back, and it's been your Achilles heel all year. I think if you had, and I'm almost to say you regressed there, where Sanders. I don't know if Sanders is a start these days, but maybe in the deep flex. But you never got that third back. I wish Henderson had been that guy, but Akers came back and has really taken off. So it's too bad. But that's a problem for you for the year. And Will mentioned it earlier he was starting to steal my thunder. He didn't take it far enough. Why in the world would you start the Cowboys defense? If you watched last week's game there and you listened to Troy Aikman on the call, which I try not to do, the Cowboy defense on multiple plays just gave up pursuit, gave up tackling, playing playing at 75% speed, just a horrible organization that's given up on the season. I can't fathom. I would play the Jets defense before I played the Cowboys defense this week.
Anyone's thoughts on that? You could be right. I mean, I tried to pick up the Rams defense and it didn't go through for some reason. I don't know.
They didn't clear it because of the Tuesday game.
Yeah.
So nothing went through until Friday.
And I don't know as though I would go as far to say horrible organization. I mean, if we look at the Forbes valuation list, they're the most valuable. Stretch to say a horrible organization. It's a tough season, but let's
great brand. I didn't say that more.
Well, drama sells.
Great brand.
Drama sells.
Yep.
So in terms of an organization, though, I agree with the horrible. Jerry Jones needs to hire a GM.
So I'll get a quick hit from each of you real quick, and then we'll get on to that last one because I do need to get moving here. Bucks,
You got someplace to be?
Washington, Bills. Who would you pick up if you were me?
No, I think the Cowboys are good. You should stay with them.
I think you're missing the boat on Washington. I think Washington's defense Actually, hold on, really quick. Give a little block here for my other friends in the league. No, Washington, I would pick them up. I think they've got one of the best defenses in football, and I think that kid from Ohio State looks like he's a star. They got a great defensive line. The 49ers stink. I would be all over the Redskins. Sorry, Batter.
I just picked them up, so don't worry.
I can't help myself but help other league members. I just can't help myself. Whether it's making deals, inside info, I can't help myself.
Okay,
No,
so
I do agree. I like Washington's defense. They do look good.
And with that move, with any move on defense, I think you take the matchup, Mark. If you stick with the Cowboys, there's a chance you lose.
yeah, it could blow up. And they have been added to the roster, so we'll see what I do before 1 o'clock today. Okay, so now we'll move on. We're gonna start with Rick on this one, obviously with Batter and Will being in the key matchup of the week. Another tight one. Brado de Goyo is favored by 6 in this one, 6.5 points. Nobody's played yet. 10 players yet to take the field. We're going to go to Mr. Spice to see if he's going to really bring it with the analysis on the matchup between Will and Batter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like this is a crazy scenario for me, and I don't think that either of them is making the wrong decision. But if we turn back the clock to draft day, and you had an opportunity to grab Kyler Murray or Deshaun Watson, you're probably jumping out of your boots to try to grab those two, well ahead of a rookie. Obviously, he's been great. Justin Herbert's been great, or Bear or Bird. I don't know. He's been great. Rodgers been great. So yeah, they're good options. Again, against Detroit, Rodgers should selfishly put up a lot of points. So I can see why you go Rodgers over Watson, and I can see why you go Justin over Murray against the best defense of football, New York Football Giants. So I can see that, but I can't fathom how we got here where those two guys aren't going to line up every week. But anyway, we'll see. That's an interesting piece of this matchup. I think Batter. I think Batter made his bed here. He should be 5 games ahead of everybody else. At draft day, he had cash to burn, and he burned it on guys like mediocre guys. And so you got a lot of mediocre guys on your bench who might play in other people's teams, but they're not really helping you. And so you got mediocre guys in your flex position instead of overpaying maybe for one more star, because you've got the horses everywhere else. And I think that was a mistake of yours, but you might get by with it if you're able to win this matchup. Yeah, I mean, big question mark too is Josh Jacobs. Young man's a great player, but oft hurt. So I don't see him, him really doing much, even if he's in the lineup. I do like Will on this matchup. I like Ronald Jones the second. And looking at Will's roster all year, I tried to figure out how we could deal, and I just couldn't come up with anything. He's deep, he's balanced, he's got good, he's got a good kicker in Graham Gano out there. So what else? What can I offer the guy? Will Lutz wasn't going to be much of an improvement there. So I like his team. I like the balance. I like Metcalf today. I like Jones today. I like Rodgers, obviously. Travis Kelce's the best in football. So yeah, Will all the way.
Okay, and I don't know if Will and Batter want to make a prediction. I guess maybe I will. I'll go next, and then we can get your guys' thoughts on just what you're looking at today. So anytime we bring Mr. Spice in, obviously he brings forth a lot of information and a lot of thoughts, which make it sometimes hard to follow. Not follow in terms of comprehension. I just mean follow in regards to being able to add something beyond what he's already added. It's going to be a tough one for sure. I mean, you look at it, you see Kyler Murray, the number 2 fantasy quarterback so far this season, not playing in a must-win game for Batter Ray. Justin Herbert had a horrible game last week, but then again, Bill Belichick always does very well against those rookie quarterbacks. So I do expect a bounce back, but geez, I don't know. They are playing the Giants, tough defense. It'd be tough for me to lose with Kyler Murray going off for 40 or something like that today. That's a tough one. But it's not an easy decision either. So can't fault him. I definitely think Aaron Rodgers is the right play. I know what you're saying, Rick, but I think Rodgers is huge there. David Montgomery, we talked about him last week on the preview. I think that looks strong. Amari Cooper. Now I'd have to look up his stats. I feel like he hasn't had a great year. Is that accurate, Will, or up and down?
No, Cooper's quietly had a great year.
Yeah. So yeah, as we've been talking, I've been looking up the scoring leaders, just kind of get a gauge where everyone's at. So, but like kind of see where my team is. And I spent more on him than I would have liked to, but I was also kind of feeling my way out. But if you look at like the top 25 receivers, I've got 5 of them on the team. Metcalf's at 3 overall. Fuller actually outperformed Cooper. But Cooper, 202 fantasy points. He's in like probably 12th place on the season in terms of fantasy scoring. Be curious to see what his season would have been like if Dak had played all year.
Yeah.
So that was one of those things. He wasn't someone that I was like super desirous of draft day. Like he wasn't on my list, but then as dollar amounts started going higher and higher for them, people are like, okay, I've got to get some name value and I got to get a guy that has some talent here. So yeah, definitely kind of feeling my way out, but then I've lucked out. I was able to get Chase Claypool, who's had a huge year. CeeDee Lamb's played well. He was my last pickup of the draft. That's the spot where I've
That
had
was a great pick.
Keeper material. Yeah.
And then, yeah, sure. And then with Aaron Rodgers and Watson, I spent more on Watson than Rodgers, and Rodgers has outscored him a little bit this year. Obviously, Watson, the Texans have underperformed. Losing Nuke Hopkins obviously hurts his playmaking ability. Although Fuller played great, but it's been a very like Rick said, I've been pretty well balanced. But there's been weeks where I've left points on the bench, unfortunately. 2 or 3 of my losses were only by like 4 or 5 points. And if I had made one different play, I could have, and trust me, I understand I'm pretty damn lucky to be in first place because I know my points aren't the highest. But then you look at the potential that I could have had even more wins just by simple small plays. But everyone's got that scenario over the course of a season too. So
yeah, I think the hardest part for Batter, I think one of the reasons why Batter is in the position he's in, which is the second highest scoring team in the league, and in position to make the playoffs, but also be on the outside looking in, is that depth. Batter has so many decisions on this roster to make today that could make or break his season. I mean, he's got the number 2 quarterback on his bench. He's got the number 1 defense on his bench. He's got Melvin Gordon on the bench. You know, he's got to pick between which receiver in Pittsburgh to go with. It's you know, the depth is, it's almost like Batter and I are the tale of two seasons. I had like no depth and kind of just had to put my guys out there. Batters had to make these tough decisions every week, and we'll see. I mean, it's certainly, he's got every player on his roster is projected to score a healthy number of points. It's very balanced all across the way. It's just that, are you going to look back and say, shoot, I should have went with my dog, there with Kyler Murray.
Yeah. No, I disagree with Eric fully.
Good.
Honestly, he likes to go big on his top guys, and I knew going into the season that would be a mistake. I'm in a position where I'm in the last game of the season and I can make the playoffs, and I've had my IR slot full all year. All year, both slots have been full.
Yeah.
Whether it was Kittle or Mostert or David Johnson or, it's been full all year, and I'm sitting at 8-5. So I think I made the right decision going for a balanced deep roster. And when you see guys like McCaffrey out all year and Barkley out all year, I think that for sure says that I made the right decision. Because who would I have picked up? It would have been Barkley or Ezekiel Elliott for that $100 spot that he's
That's
talking
true.
about.
Great
And
point.
look at what's happened with those guys.
Yeah, but wouldn't you rather be playing even Ezekiel Elliott on a down year, the worst year of his career? Wouldn't you rather be playing Ezekiel Elliott than either of the two guys you have in your flex position right now?
No, Deontay Johnson, I'll take over Ezekiel Elliott this year, today.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And no, but I mean, no, you have
No,
to
that's crazy.
sacrifice something for the balance. And I sacrificed, having Ezekiel Elliott on my roster or Saquon Barkley to know that if I do have 2-3 guys that go on the COVID list, one week I had all 4 roster spots, on the IR spots taken up because of COVID. And I'm sitting at 8-5 with the best total record in the league. So, I think it was a good decision.
I think you lost your mind. I would not play this Johnson guy over I don't know his name over Zeke.
Well, you have the best looking roster this week at 3-10, and I'm sitting at 8-5 with decisions to make. So I think I made a good decision.
No, you're right. You're right. You made the safe play. You're right. And Saquon got hurt, and Thomas got hurt, and Eckler got hurt, and that's football. It happens.
Yeah.
But you're again. Some say that King of Points is the. I know it's just a down year for everybody. I think it's down here. I think COVID. I don't think Mark, you'd be writing home about this year's King of Points over last year's. I think last year you dominated the league. This year you might sneak in and win the King of Points, and you're going to look back and you're going to say, well, I didn't really have that great of a year, but you won it because everybody else kind of limped around all year, and if Batter, if that was your goal to just sneak in and be good enough to get it, hey,
my goal is to win the championship every year.
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to.
Different people have different goals for life. Some people want to excel, and do great things. Some people want to, just good enough is good enough. So.
I think when it comes, needle. I think when
it's just bitterness.
In this matchup, I think Will sleep easily, and probably because he's already in the playoffs, but sleep easily knowing that he didn't have any real tough decisions to make with his roster. He's got, I think, this week anyways, he knows he's got the right lineup in there. With Batter, it's just a matter of, is Batter going to say, damn.
And honestly, I'm not set on this roster yet. That last flex spot, I'm not.
And I'm not trying to convince you to make a move. I'm just saying that have a lot of tough decisions to make, for sure.
I'm just not sure if Robbie Anderson's going to be double teamed all week because no other receivers are playing all day.
Kind of the curious thing is to see how this could affect seeding too, because I very well might be playing him again next week.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
If I lose and Big John loses or Red loses, we're playing again next week.
Well, yeah, if Will loses and I win, I would go to, assuming again I hold on to the points title, I'd be the number 1 seed, and you guys would be 2 and 3.
Yeah. So
and I'd probably be playing. I guess it'd be Red or Big John. So
yeah, and then getting back to the Murray thing, I think Murray's a better play every week, but I think he's injured and they're hiding that. You see him when he runs, he does not look like the same runner. As he did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I think this week it's the right decision. I think last week it was a horrendous decision.
If last week if I played Murray, we would have tied.
Oh, really?
It would have been a tie.
Wow. Well, listen, we do need to wrap up here. Any final thoughts, Will? Any thoughts for you as you head into this final regular season matchup?
Honestly, I'm lucky to be in the spot that I'm in. I will say that. Fortunate that I don't have to sweat this week out the way that some of other people do. And so happy about that. It's been an awesome season. It's definitely the most involved in terms of the way that people talk with each other, because these are people, I only have relationships with a few of you guys, but to be able to kind of shit talk and have fun with it, but have people really be involved and care. That's the cool part about it. In our other league, it's competitive. I've had a really good year, but we've had 2 people that have kind of dropped off and not paid attention towards the end, which always stinks. You know what I mean? You want everyone to be involved and pay attention and be competitive. So I'm definitely happy to be in the group, and it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Well,
hopefully Sean was listening there.
Yes.
I agree. I agree with that fully because if you look at it, Team Irrelevance is out and they have a great roster going today. Philly's putting up a good fight today. He's back, put up the best roster he possibly could, and so is Smuts Nuts. I mean, it's nice to see that everybody's involved till the end. You know, because one guy saying if Smuts Nuts or he's back said screw it, I'm out. You know that changes the whole picture for the playoffs for the rest of us. So it's nice that everybody's trying to put their best team out there, and it's a very awesome league in that sense too.
Agreed, and it's been fun as an outside observer of the playoff race. It's been fun watching the last 4 or 5 weeks. You know, there's been games that are, you know, if one wins, they're move into the 4th place spot. If you lose, you're down in the 6th place spot. It's been great to watch. The league's been great. The balance has been great.
Yeah, no, it's good to. Oh boy, okay. It's good to be a part of a league so special. It's good to have the involvement with everybody, and I wish you all luck this week. And hopefully, I loved having all of you guys on. So hopefully, we can do this again. Maybe with next week with the playoffs in mind, we can have another preview and see how things look. But thank you all for joining me today and enjoy the game.
Marky, we got a question. We got a start question.
I know, babe.
Okay, go ahead.
This question goes from Bars in the Truck. Morning. Lost Gibson, Sat Akers, Lost Gaskin, need a flex, standard league. DeAndre Washington, Philip Lindsay, Wilson Jr., Pittman Jr. I don't know who Chenault is or Gage.
Chenault's the little slot receiver in Jacksonville.
Okay. Man, that's not a. That's
I would throw the Miami guy Washington in there just to. Those are bad options. I would throw the Washington cat in there.
Yeah, I don't like Wilson Jr.
I don't like any 49er running back today against Washington's defensive line, but
yeah, I think Pittman or DeAndre Washington.
Yeah, I agree fully with that, and thank you, Bars in the Tuck, for joining the program today.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it just goes to show. And listen, tell your friends, Bars, to join the program, and we're happy to answer any questions that we get throughout the weeks. But this was fun. So again, best of luck, Will. Looks like Will's off on daddy duty, perhaps, or just out getting a little sun.
You hit the nail on the head, buddy. We got a sick little girl we're going to bring to the urgent care just to see if we can sort out what's going on with her. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry to hear that, Will. We'll be thinking.
Thanks, guys. Good luck this week. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye. Have a good week, everyone. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll preview again next week, everyone. Take care.
Have a good one. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Bye.